So I'll load this up. So what we're going to do is we're going to define a series of rule sets for our page. And we want to try to keep these simple. We'll get into CSS architecture and some suggestions on how to plan out your CSS later in the week. So I'm going to keep this pretty simple, and we'll just try and go through as much as we can in the 14 minutes we have left, 24 minutes. So I'm going to define a new rule set. And I want to start by defining a rule set for my main header. So for here, I don't want this to be on all headers. I want to be able to reuse the header. So I'm going to give this a specific class of main. Actually, I'll just keep it main. Yeah. I'll do main header. And this is just a way for us to be a little more verbose in our CSS about which piece we're talking about. So here I'll do .main header. And this is considered a rule set. So starting with our class main header, I'm going to add some rules to this. So it looks like they've got a black background here, and it is getting cut off, so we'll have to add some width to this setup. So I'm going to stick a black background on there. So for main header, I'm going to set background to 0, 0, 0. One thing to note is that this is, I don't know if you guys have seen the shorthand for hexadecimal colors. There's two ways to write this. Both of these mean the same thing. So the longhand is 6 values. It's the RR, GG, BB. And they go from 0 to 9 and then A to F. So FF, FF, FF is white. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 is black. If your values for the 2 R's, the 2 G's, and the 2 B's are the same, you could shorthand them to the three-digit version. So 0, 0, 0 is the same as 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Just as FFF is the same as FF, FF, FF.
Are there any human readable predefines for? Yeah.
Yep. I don't know them all off the top of my head. There is black. So yes, there is a set. What, Rain? What's your favorite one?
Peach Puff, obviously.
Peach Puff.
Obviously.
Is it a dash?
No dash.
No dash? Peach Puff. So yes, there's a set of human readable colors that most browsers have available. It just depends on what they have. There's other ways to define colors too. You can define them as RGB or RGBA for adding in the alpha color as well. But we'll stick with the hexadecimal for now. So let's see what this looks like. All right. So we get a solid black background behind our wired logo. So that's a pretty good start. The other thing that they've got that we don't have right now is centering the content. So they've got this sort of centered piece here where the margins on the sides kind of automatically adjust as we move our page size. So let's add that in. So the elements that we want to include in that are our header and our main and our footer. So I'll add a class to the footer just to help identify this one and call this, what do I call that one? Main header. I'll call this main footer. So now I've got a unique way of defining these elements. And so here what I want to do is I want to say my .main header and my .main footer and my main element. So by using the comma, I'm saying take the same rule set and apply it to 3 different selectors. I want to give these a width of, let's just say for now, what's the image right now? (398 pixels). So I'll give it a 500 pixel width. So saving that and testing it out. So that's what it looks like at 500 pixels. It's a little small. Probably go 6. That's a little bit better. So our content is basically being crammed now into a smaller space, but we have all this white space to the right and nothing on the left. So we want to kind of center this on the page. So because these are considered block level elements, we can add margin to these that's automatically calculated. So for the margin on this one, when you have values like this, there's a couple different ways to define them. You have the top, right, bottom, left as 4 separate values, or you have top and bottom and left and right, or you have all 4 at once. So if I wanted all my margins to be 20 pixels, I could do 1 value. If I want to set my top and bottom and left and right, I can define them as 2 values. So now my top and bottom will be 20 and my left and right will be 50. Or if I want to be specific about each one, oh, sorry, I forgot, I'm doing a hotkey here. If you want to comment anything out in Sublime Text, put your cursor on the line and hit Command / and it will comment out the whole line. It's also file type sensitive, so CSS comments are a little bit different from HTML comments. So if I go in here and I wanted to comment this line out in my HTML, it'll actually use an HTML comment as opposed to the CSS comment. Pretty cool. So if I want to set the individual values, I can set all 4. Top, I guess I should write that in. Top, right, bottom, left. So for this one, I'll just set them as individual, but I could shorthand this because I know that all the values are going to be the same. My top is going to be 0 pixels. I don't want any top margin. I want my right margin to be automatic. I want my bottom to be 0, and I want my left margin to be automatic. Because I've specified a width on these elements, and they're block level, they should move over, assuming the browser is reading these as proper.
How do we input PX in after 0?
You don't have to if it's 0. 0 is 0 regardless of which type of element it is. So this could be 0 EMs or 0 REMs or 0 pixels or 0%. They all kind of mean the same thing. So for 0, it's okay.
It's only for 0 that you don't have to do.
Exactly.
Or auto.
And auto. Well, yeah, auto doesn't have a value. So let's see if this is any better. Well, it doesn't look too bad. So now you can see it's centered in the page, and it stays centered as I scale this out. We're going to talk about responsive design later this week, so I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but that's the idea that this site would work on multiple devices regardless of screen size. So right now, if I scale this too far, we get a horizontal scroll bar. Responsive design aims to fix that situation. because this site would not look good for somebody on an iPhone or an Android phone. I mean, it might look okay, but it's not quite great. All right, so let's see what else we've got here. Let's add the hover for these because we're getting a little short on time. So I know that the base color for our A tags is black and that the hover color is this kind of light blue. And it also looks like they don't have an underline. So here I've got why privacy is actually thriving online is this ugly blue color, and it's got this huge underline on it. Let's get rid of all that. So I'm going to define a rule. Let's stick this up at the top. For my A tags, these are my anchors. And I'm just going to say that the color is black. And the text decoration is none. Let me just make sure I did that right. Yep. So I'm saying that all my links should be black and not have an underline. So this looks like this. We now have, instead of that ugly blue, we have a very solid black, and there's no underline. So we're getting there. So let's add a pseudo selector for our hover state so that when we hover over this, it changes the color. So here we have our A tag. I'm going to add another rule set for an A tag for the anchor, but I'm going to define a pseudo selector here by using the colon. And I'm looking for the hover state of this element. So when the mouse is over this element, whatever anchor tag is currently being used, I should apply this rule set over whatever's already there. So let's say here I just want to change the color to, let's just do red, which actually is F00. So I've defined a rule set for the normal anchor tag, which just says color is black and the text decoration is none. But on hover, I want to use the color red. So when I hover over these anchor tags, will they have an underline or not? No? You think they might? Okay. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to reload this page. So close. So the rule here still applies. The anchor tag rule still applies. We're just overriding it with the hover. And we can actually inspect this. This is part of the power of our inspector here. When I inspect this item, this tag, I can right-click on it in my HTML view and force the element state of hover. The benefit of this is I don't have to look at my CSS quickly to see if it changes when I mouse over it. Right? I can just force it to be hovered. And now I can see right here, line 6 in my main CSS says the color should be black. It's overridden here on line 1, which said it was black. But that's the only overriding state that it has. Of course, if here I were to add text decoration to the hover, and then refresh the page, now when I hover over it, I'm overriding text decoration none. So if we re-add the forced element state to hover, now you can see it's overriding both my color and my text decoration. Any questions about that? Why that's happening?
Where that first underline come from that you got rid of by removing it?
It's a default. That's part of the normalization. All browsers underline and set that stupid blue color. I shouldn't say stupid. It's a valid color. I don't want to hurt its feelings. So, oops.
Is there a difference between the capital F or lowercase f for color?
Usually with hexadecimal you want to use the uppercase, but it doesn't really care. So consistency, that's really where it comes down to it. If you like the lowercase look, always use lowercase. If you like the uppercase look, always use uppercase. I tend to use all uppercase because it's a lot clearer to me.
What do you use for your quick reference to the hexadecimal colors?
Usually I will just find like a hex to, or a like a color selector for hex. I don't have a usual one. Let's see, we can just find hex picker. So here's a good one. Pick whatever color you want, whatever shade you want, and you get the hex right here. I have a Chrome plugin that allows me to color pick from websites. But there's also some good places like Cooler. Have you guys heard of cooler.adobe.com? I think that's what the URL is. This is really good for creating color schemes, and you can get the hexadecimal or the RGB from it. So they have different ways that you can create your color schemes. So this is really handy. There's also, what is this, the flat colors, flatUIcolors.com. These are, flat UI is just a design approach, and they've picked a color set for their UI. So for any one of these things, you can click on it, and it will copy the color value for you. So if I want to use nephritis, well, actually, let's use Peter River for our hover color. I don't know what this is going to copy as, though. Yep, hexadecimal. So copied in the hexadecimal for me, and when I go back to my page and reload it, it's now a little bit closer to the actual color from Wired. We're going to get into CSS frameworks, not yet. So avoid using Twitter Bootstrap or Foundation or Semantic UI because they are kind of like they add the magic back into CSS. So they'll do a lot of stuff for you. In this case, starting from scratch, we're using a normalize to kind of help with some of that cross-browser issue. But we're basically normalizing all the elements and then starting to add our own theme on top of our skin, if you will, to the site. With something like Bootstrap, what you'd be doing is you'd be including Bootstrap and designing around Bootstrap, and then tweaking Bootstrap to be the right colors and sizes and elements that you want. But they basically give you kind of a preset, pre-built list of things you can use. So if you once you start looking at things like Bootstrap or Foundation, you're going to notice that probably a large percentage of sites actually look the same because they all use that same sort of structure. So from here, we're starting from scratch. We're keeping things simple. Our normalized CSS file is very small. Our CSS file is right now very, very small. And our HTML is very, very focused. So yeah, for right now, include the normalize and then just kind of overwrite the styles the way that you want them to be. And we'll talk more about the architecture and